Hello, my name is Brandon Kaysen. I'm board president of the Central Coast Green Building Council. I'm super grateful for Ventura College School of Architecture for being our hosts and supporting us in getting this information out to the public. This is the Green Building Speaker Series for 2021. Last year, we were ruminating over what's just something that we can get going during COVID that would offer benefits to our community, especially the next generation of sustainability leaders. And Ralph and Lisa and a few others in the Ventura Regional Council put together this idea, and it's been really a joy. I've learned a lot through this process, and we've had some great questions and answers, and just really wonderful feedback. So I'm happy to be here, happy to have so many guests today. And tonight, Sasha from Quail Springs, who is also a Central Coast Green Building Council board member, is going to be talking about natural buildings in a changing climate. And if any of you have heard of Quail Springs before, you know that they are definitely leading the march in more traditional building materials and building styles, and really discovering ways of how these quote ancient techniques can fit into a modern building code and a modern system. All right, so let's go to the next slide. So just a quick introduction. We'd love for you to get involved with the Central Coast Green Building Council. We are a regional or a local chapter for the U.S. Green Building Council. We have a couple social media accounts, so if you use Facebook or Instagram, I know not everyone does, we would love for you to take a look and give us a follow so you can stay up to date with all the things that we have going on, and help participate in the conversation around green building and sustainability throughout the Tri-County. We also have recordings for all of the speakers in the series, so if you missed any of the presentations from January to present, you can go to YouTube, search for Central Coast Green Building Council, and you'll be able to find all of our recordings from our previous speakers. We do have regional councils, so whether you live in San Luis Obispo County, Ventura County, or Santa Barbara County, we would love to get you involved in our monthly conversations. Feel free to send an email over to admin@ccgreenbuilding.org, and we'll get you plugged into those regional conversations. One of the few ways that we can bring some money in and continue doing these valuable presentations, as well as a slew of other programs and projects that we have going on, is to increase our membership. Now, if you're a USGBC national membership, there's a $20 discount, so the chapter membership goes from $60 to $40. And whether you're a student or an emerging professional or someone who's trying to transition in their career, we do have an emerging professionals option for $20. You can go to ccgreenbuilding.org/member sponsor volunteer to sign up as a member today. One of the benefits of becoming a member is access to our 2021 mentorship program, which was just recently launched, where we are focused on partnering mentors with mentees to facilitate the conversation around sustainability, what types of career paths are blossoming, where students can focus and try to figure out which direction they want to take their career. So there are many professionals throughout the Tri-County, and we hope that we can find some mentors and mentees to help facilitate this process, to share some of the expertise and the experience that our mentors have with the next generation of sustainability leaders. So again, you can reach out to admin@ccgreenbuilding.org or type into Google CCGBC Mentorship Initiative, and it'll take you straight to our online form. There's a slew of membership benefits. I won't go through all these, but really becoming a member of the CCGBC is a statement in saying, I support this organization, I support what they stand for, and I want them to continue offering education and promoting advocacy of green building throughout the state of California. You can get involved with local events, you get access to our bi-monthly newsletter, access to green building professionals, and we hope that becoming a member helps facilitate the advancement of your career. So looking ahead, what else do we got on deck for the Green Building Speaker Series? We have Amanda Martin with Renewal Revolution, who's also a CCGBC board member, who's going to talk about sustainable building materials. Candace Wong is going to talk about the public-private interface with regard to LEED projects. Ryan Kintz is going to talk about local government's responsibility and their role in the green building industry. And then Brian Johnson from the Ashkin Group is going to talk about green cleaning and sustainability and facility re-entry in a post-COVID world, and really talking about the importance of ventilation systems and cleaning products and other things like that. So we've got a great list, and this isn't all. I just didn't have enough room to put the others on the rest of our list for this year, but we hope that you'll continue to join us every month. Lastly, we have continued education options. So whether you're a lead GA, a lead AP, or trying to receive AIA learning units, this presentation here tonight does cover some continuing education for all these professional credentials. So make sure that if you're trying to get the AIA learning unit for this presentation, to add your AIA number to the chat with your full name. You can send that directly to Eva. And if you're a lead GA or AP, all you need to do is write a summary of what you learned today, and you can submit it to the GBCI for CEUs. And lastly, just logistics for the night. If you have comments or burning questions, or maybe you just want to give a thumbs up to a cool slide that Sasha presents, send your comments in the chat box, and we will facilitate question and answer at the end of the presentation. So if you can, please keep your microphone on mute and prevent any background noise. Sit back, relax, and enjoy Sasha's presentation. And with that, I will stop sharing my screen. And Sasha, I'll hand it over to you.
Okay, hello everyone. Can everyone hear me okay? Okay.
Yeah, you're good.
Thanks for coming. Thanks for joining us. I see some familiar faces out there and lots of unfamiliar faces. So I am going to give a bit of a broad look at a smorgasbord, if you will, of looking at our built environment and looking at sort of bridging some very old traditional methods of building with more modern building science, building code kind of stuff. And I'm just going to touch on a huge variety of different things and different topics, and probably a bunch of them will be things that you might have questions about, or maybe you want more information about, and I'm happy to share more, or some of them we can maybe dive a little more into at the end. I was kind of going over the presentation. I'm like, well, it's kind of a lot, but that's okay. I'll try to keep it to about a half an hour, and then we can have some conversation and some questions. So I am going to share my screen now. So maybe just I'll start with, whoops, a little about me. My name is Sasha Rabin, and I've been in the natural building world, mostly earthen building, for about 20 years now. And I started out in my early 20s and apprenticed with a man named Yonto Evans in Oregon, from a very, very low tech, kind of as low tech as you can get side of things. And I've slowly been working on melding that way of doing things and those ethics and perspectives with modern day codes and other such things, as you will see. This is where I live. This is it's called Quail Springs. We steward about 450 acres in the Cuyama Valley. So for those of you who are in Ventura County, this is the farthest corner of Ventura County that you can possibly get to. And it's the end of our driveway is right on the Santa Barbara County line. It's kind of, there's a convergence out here of, just to give you all an idea of where it is. It's basically between Santa Barbara and Bakersfield. We're up in the high desert. It's about 3,600 feet. and we get about 6 inches of rain a year. So it's a pretty good spot for earthen building. So here's a shot from overhead. We've been working on restoring the spring that we have on our site. That's been one of the main areas of focus, and our natural building advocacy. Everything you see in this photo was planted within the last 12 years or built within the last 12 years. So you can get a little bit of a sense. So about that top photo is about 10 years ago, and then the bottom one is about 2 years ago. So that's our little spot. Once COVID wraps up a little bit more, we host lots of fun farm tours and stuff, and y'all are welcome. So I'm just we're gonna start really big picture here, just looking at our built environment. And I know that probably all of us on this Zoom call are involved in the building industry in some way. And I have taken a lot of my inspiration in my work from different traditional building systems from around the world. And this was an aqueduct in Turkey, Roman aqueduct. And one of the things that I found so inspiring about some of these buildings is the attention to detail and the attention to beauty with something that was never supposed to be seen, right? This is just where water is stored, and there's a road over the top. This is in China, and you know what? I can't see with my sharing of my slides this way, I can't see my presenter's view. This is in Asia, and I'm not actually, don't quote me on the exact spot. A lot of these photos are not ones that I've taken. The last one was, but. So one of the things that I've done in my work is really just sort of looking at our built environment and how differently our world would be, and our homes and our towns and our cities, if we were involved in any aspect of the building or of the design of them. And I think that one of the big differences of a lot of traditional towns and villages is that they were built by the people that are inhabiting them. And we've come so far from that. So I take a lot of my inspiration, my work from some of these more traditional buildings and villages and dwellings, and really imagining into, oh, what would that be like to live there? What would my life be like if I was inhabiting some of these places that have been built in a very different way? They've grown organically over time based on the needs and the changing needs over generations of the people who live in those buildings. This is one of the largest earthen buildings in the world. This is a mosque in Mali. This is a traditional building in China where it's built, basically it's apartments, and it's built in the round, and it's open in the center for defensive purposes. But so it's an apartment building in a way, with an entire opening in the center. And it just feels like it would lead to such a different life. As with this, right? This is in, I think, Tuscany, and that would be a different walk from your home than I think most of us have. And then then we have this. We have what a lot of people in the US live in towns and cities that are designed and built by people that might never set foot in that neighborhood or in that city or in that house. And so we won't get there quite yet. So part of the bigger picture of what the work that I do is trying to reimagine and recreate that relationship with our built environment. And I don't feel like that means that everyone needs to, tear down a perfectly fine house and build their own shelter from scratch at all. But I do think that deepening our relationship with our built environment surroundings, and whether that means just simply having a better understanding of what our house is built out of, or the fact that we can make an earthen paint from clay that we dig up on the side of the road, sorry, and like paint our walls or replaster our house or what have you, or do a nice earthen wall in your front yard and decorate it beautifully, but to recreate some relationship with our built environment. So that's one piece of the work that we do. And another piece, and I will admit that it's a big picture goal, but we're trying to basically recreate the paradigm of our built environment and looking especially at new hazards in our built environment. So this is a graph that was created by a man named Art Ludwig, and it sort of speaks to some of the importance of needing more elements to be taken into consideration in our codes and in the mainstream building that we're doing. And if you look at some of these the codes right now are not representative of our actual hazards in our built environment. And in my opinion, I'm sure there's some people here who might disagree with me, but we don't take into consideration, especially in California, what, fire, for example, we take house fires. You can see here, like house fires have gone down drastically. Structural collapse has gone down drastically. That's great. But right now we have, basically urban wildfires that we're not taking into account in our designing of our built environment in our towns and cities, not to mention things like climate disruption and stuff like that. So there is some great work being done with buildings that are carbon negative, basically, and we can talk more about that, or I can point people into some good directions of different talks and information on that. So this is one of my favorite buildings. So I think one thing just a presence is that earthen building is even today the most common building material on the planet. And especially in the US, we tend to think of it as being this really unusual kind of niche, kind of, out there thing. And I think it's really helpful to know that it's actually still today the most common building material that we have, that people live in. So this is the main system that we do. It's called cob, and you can see the photo there is someone's hand basically working in this earthen material mix into a wall. And the photo on the left is one of the finished buildings out at Quail Springs. And it is literally just clay soil that we dig up, straw, it's a byproduct from the wheat or rice industry. Generally, we get wheat straw, and sand. This is a traditional cob building in England. This is probably some idea of this kind of building is probably familiar to folks. There's earthen building traditions in every continent except for Antarctica, but the specific kind of earthen building that we do that's called cob originates from England, and this is sort of the classic traditional building style there. It's the lime whitewashed walls, the thatched roof. And a lot of those buildings have been around for many hundreds of years. And of course, also where we live in Santa Barbara, Ventura, LA, the oldest buildings in our region are also, of course, built out of earth, mostly adobe. So this is a building project in that this is a couple from the 40s, and they bought 2 acres in Montecito. I'm sorry, yes, in Montecito, and built a house. They immigrated from Mexico. They started digging a trench. You can see adobes there in the background. And this is their house, and it's still there. It's still in Montecito. Looks like the 2 acres that it was on probably are not quite still there. But I show this photo to just give us a reminder that it wasn't all that long ago that you could buy some land and build yourself a house. And I feel like we've really come so far from this sense that that is something that is accessible to us, that, yeah, I just want to put out that reminder that it actually isn't that far away, and not that many generations back from most of us. Our great grandparents, or some of us, our grandparents, were building their own shelter, and that was something that was accessible. So here in Montecito, someone just building their own house, right? Less than 100 years ago. So this is my house that I built in sort of that way of doing things, where you just do it. And it's not permitted, as are most of the buildings at Quail Springs. We are in a process of retroactively permitting them, but it wouldn't have been possible for us to permit these. We have been working with the county to change the codes in Ventura County, and a couple years ago we did. About 10 years ago, we worked with the county to get a owner builder code into the Ventura County Building Code. And then last year, we submitted a bunch of changes to it. And for those of you who are in in Ventura County, it's it's a very common code in a lot of other parts of California. In Mendocino, it's called Class K. In different parts of the state, it's called different things, but it's an owner builder code, which I think is really important for people to be able to build their own house and take responsibility for their own house. In Ventura County, you have to have 100 acres not connected to sewer, power, or water. So obviously that's not super common in Ventura County, but that's the code that we are applying for retroactively to permit our buildings through. Another great benefit of these materials, that they are totally non-toxic, and kids can. So here we're building a bench at the Family Resource Center, which is in Cuyama Valley, which is a community center and community space, and we're getting all the kids involved in building some little benches outside. So very user friendly. Here's a little guest cottage out at Quail Springs. It's been built about 10 years ago, and one question a lot of people ask is, like, what kind of maintenance or repair do these kind of buildings need? And yeah, this one, I guess it's 9 years old, and this photo looks like it was taken a little while back, but we really haven't touched it since, and it's doing just fine. We do live in the high desert, so we don't get a ton of rain, so that helps that. But it's just built all out of earth. The walls are built. This one that we're looking at is it's sort of a hybrid of a few different natural building techniques, but the cob part is holding up the roof. The weight of the roof is just resting on the earthen walls. And then this mandala that you see in the front is just different colors of clay, making that pattern and design. Oh, you guys already saw that. Here's some more of the structures. We have a lot of like tiny little sleeping structures that likely might be permitted as sheds in our process, just like little 100-square-foot earthen little sleeping structures. This is another one. The red clay is just one canyon over, has some really nice red colored clay. It's our shower house. It's a traditional Moroccan finish called Tadelact, and it's a sealed lime technique. The walls are plastered with lime, and then it's sealed with hours of burnishing with a tiny little stone, and it's really hard to get a nice photo of, but it's super, super beautiful. So another aspect of what we're working on is the actual testing of these materials. Most of the information we have about them is more anecdotal, knowing what survived through what kind of earthquake, or what collapsed during what kind of an earthquake. And so a few years ago, we did a project with Cal Poly with the civil engineering professor there. And these are two of his graduate students who did their thesis project. And we did some seismic testing, some reverse cyclical testing on these walls. And yeah, they did great. Unfortunately, I don't yet have a nice synopsis write-up of them, but I'm pestering some of the engineers to do that. It's all still a little bit amorphous to me, but they did well. And there is an engineering firm up in Berkeley that worked on these with us who is using some of the data to now be able to permit earthen buildings. So that's exciting. So we did 4 different wall systems, and they all had different layers of wire mesh inside, which I don't love, but it is probably the direction that we're going for permitted cob buildings in seismic areas in California. And there is a code for cob that got passed by the ICC last year. And it also mandates that anywhere that has, you know, certain seismic zones, I always get confused if it's A, B, and C, or C, D, and E, which ones are the worst seismic zones. Anyway, in the areas where there is seismic activity, you do have to get an engineer to do your plans. And most likely it'll mean having some sort of wire mesh inside of the walls. So that's some of what we've been experimenting with, and all 4 of these walls have different amounts. So the other aspect of what we're working on, especially in our region in California, obviously with fires being such an issue, is getting them rated for being fire resistant. And we all know that, you know, earth doesn't burn. It's been used for hundreds, if not thousands of years for fires and for ovens, sorry, et cetera, et cetera. But we don't have an official rating for it. And there's a lot of scenarios where you do need an ASTM E119 rating for a material in order to use it for, you know, certain applications. So this photo was actually taken today. My partner and I are in Texas building these 2 walls at a testing facility here. And hopefully they will pass the test and we will get an ASTM E119 rating for them that can then get worked into the cob code in the next editing cycle. So you can see here that there is this 6x6 wire mesh inside of our walls. And the idea for this being that this test is not something that's just useful in California. It can be useful anywhere. But this wall system potentially could be a wall that anyone in any of their regions could do, even if you're in an area without seismic activity. So you don't personally need the wire mesh, but it's a little extra annoying step you have to do. And then us in California who might need to do the wire mesh then can also have a wall that'll work for our needs. So that's what we're doing, and it's really interesting. You can see in the background here today, this spray foam insulation company joined us. They pulled up and we're like, oh, these are different worlds. But it's basically the facility, the type of facility that tests different materials for their fire resistant qualities. And a huge part of what we're learning is just simply how to test these materials. And for example, how to be systematic with our density that we're doing in our mixes and how to be really precise with them. And we can measure our clay and sand by volume, but we can't measure it by weight because it just has to do with, like, did it rain last night, which it did, so it would be heavier because it's wet. And then our straw, you can't really weigh by volume because it's so fluffy. It just depends on how you pack it. So we're trying to learn how to be more accurate with all of those things with a material that's very not made for that. And it's also, I'll just add, you know, yesterday we had someone else from a different company come talk to us, and they're testing some super high-tech building material wall system. I didn't even really understand what it was. And he asks me, oh, what's your mix? And he says, don't worry, I won't I'm just getting a thing that says my internet connection is unstable, but hopefully, can you all still hear me okay?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay. He says, oh, don't worry, I won't tell anyone. And we're like, oh no, this is all open source. Like, this is all public information. Please tell everyone, you know? So it is a very different world that we're entering into with this. And so a big part of what we're doing is just trying to understand how to bridge these worlds. So here's our, some more of our project at Quail Springs. We're trying to take all this research and permit our demonstration site out there, hopefully as a bridge to allow other people in other places to be able to also permit buildings more easily. Okay, we're almost through here. I probably talked faster than I even needed to because I was so worried about taking too much time. I just want to throw this in here. So this is actually a straw bale house, but for all practical purposes, this could be, you can see the stem wall in the background is cinder block, and the wall actually that this, that we're looking at is sheetrock. So for all practical purposes, this could really be any kind of a structure. And one of the ways that I feel like these earthen materials can be most widely used is through fun little elements and details inside of one's house. So I was working on the plaster of this straw bale house, and he said, I want a little earthen wall behind where the wood stove's going. So I said, okay, let's do that. So we stack up some adobes, plaster it, and it just totally changes the feel of the space to have one little earthen curved wall element behind the fireplace, and as well as the fact that it also stores some heat and then gives that heat back out over time. So just to throw that out there as other ideas of ways that some of these materials might be incorporated into more mainstream building. And the wall behind the curved wall, the sort of slightly darker brown wall, is also just an earthen plaster over a sheetrock wall. So that's also, easy, commonly done practice. Here's a few resources. I can put these in the chat, but different, our website, if some of you are familiar with the YouTube channel called Living Big in a Tiny House, they did a really sweet little video on our house. There's this one down here at the bottom. It's another YouTube video that someone did about our house. Not as great, but you know, if you're super interested, you can check them out. So, okay, I'm gonna stop sharing. We can open it up for questions and conversations, and I will post this stuff in the chat.
Awesome, Sasha. Thank you so much. That was really great. I love the presentation.